Everyone, welcome back to another very exciting Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. I am your host, Jesus Ramirez. How's it going? Happy Friday. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me and if you can see me. I already see a lot of familiar faces in the chat. Thank you so much for joining me. Sean, N, Tatiana, Mallory, Ted, Edward, Mercurial, Ferry as usual, Steve, Ron. Thank you so much. I hope everybody's doing well. Let me know where you're watching from. I'm currently streaming from Manchester, UK. Let me know if you're having a wonderful morning or a wonderful afternoon or evening. Sam in the chat. Hey, Sam, how's it going? Sean is reminding me to turn off my recording at the end of the stream today. I'll remember that. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Cool. So it looks like we're having an awesome day. Before we get started, there's one thing I want to share with you guys. Let me switch over to my screen in just a second, but before I do that, I'm going to paste a link in the chat, and hopefully Sam can make that into a clickable link. But what that link is a link to this page from Adobe. So yesterday, Adobe published this page where I show people how to, Photoshop users to be more specific, where I showed Photoshop users how to take advantage of Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Premiere. So there's 6 videos teaching you how to use Premiere and Illustrator with a Photoshop user perspective. So make sure that you check those out. Link is in the description. And yeah, I hope that you enjoy those tutorials. So today is the last Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge, but if you want to learn a bit more during the weekend, this is the perfect option for you. So make sure that you check those out, and it's from Adobe. Cool. So this is the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge, and of course, make sure that you click on the community chat so that you can go into the Discord page, click on Get Started or Current Challenge right up above my head, and from here you will see all the work that we've been creating. This is the surreal portraits that we worked on yesterday, some of the hair replacements, a lot of good work. So thank you so much for submitting your work. It's okay if you're still catching up. You can submit it today or during the weekend, no problem. But make sure that you submit your work. Talking about submitting your work, make sure that you submit your work into our curated gallery, and that is on behance.net/galleries/challenges. And from there, you can have an opportunity to be featured in this gallery. And the way to do that is when you submit your work into behance.net, make sure that you use the hashtag #PSDailyChallenge. PSDailyChallenge. If you don't know how to do that, no worries. Go back into the welcome stream and I show how to do just that. Also, you can do the same thing for the XD Daily Creative Challenges and the Illustrator Creative Challenges using the corresponding hashtags. But this is a great place to get inspired and see all the other work that people have been submitting and the work that has been selected to be featured in this curated community gallery. So let me check out the chat. We have a whole lot of comments. Awesome. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much. I can see that we have people watching from all over the world. We have people from New Zealand. Awesome. We have Murray from Brampton, Canada. Cool. Thank you so much for watching. Marsha from Ontario, Canada. Cool. Canada in the house for sure today. Wellington, New Zealand. Hey, Steve. How's it going? Good to see you as usual. Awesome. And thanks, Sam, for helping out in the chat and posting all those links. Cool. Let me see. It looks like, oh, there you go. I got my chat back. For some reason, my chat went blank, but now it's back. Awesome. Cool. So today we're going to work on challenge number 9. Challenge number 9, and that means that you need to go, where's the page? I lost it. Oh, I need to go back. behance.net/challenges, challenge/Photoshop, and you need to scroll down to the very bottom of the page is the last daily creative challenge for this set of daily creative challenges. More coming up next week. And today we're going to work on retro photography. You can click on the Get Started button to download the file that I'm going to be working with, but you can use any file that you like. And if I go too fast or you miss something, make sure that you come back and click on the Watch Video button to watch the replay. Cool. So let's open up Photoshop, and this is the file that I'm going to work with today. If you've been following along, then you know that I've been using the same file for all 9 challenges, and you don't have to do that. You can use a different image for each individual challenge, but I decided to use the same one for all the challenges. And today we're going to create a retro effect in Photoshop, and we're going to use several tools and techniques for that I hope that you enjoy. Good morning, Ralph. Good to see you in the chat. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. So why don't we get started? The first thing that I'm going to do is right click on the layer and convert it into a smart object. And by now, if you've been following along, you should know that a smart object is a container that allows you to hold one or more layers, and it allows you to apply non-destructive adjustments, distortions, filters, and transformations. In other words, you can come back and edit it at any time. So that's what we want to do. We want to make sure we can come back and edit this file if need be. Clarissa says, I've rewatched all the videos. Awesome, Clarissa. Thank you so much. And we're going to start by going into the filter menu and selecting our good friend, the camera raw filter. The camera raw filter gives you total control of your photos, tonality, color, all sorts of different things. It's a very powerful tool, so I recommend that you get familiar with it. And from here, the way that I like to work is just going from top to bottom, but you can always come back to the top if you decide that one of the adjustments at the bottom change something and you feel like an adjustment on the top would correct it. There's really no right or wrong way of working. I just prefer going from top to bottom. Cool. And what I'm going to do here is simply drag the temperature slider to the right just to warm it up. I'm going from that old photo retro effect. We're going to create a light leak later on. So I just want that brownish, warm feeling, like that old school, I don't know, 60s, 70s feel to it. So here we are. What I'm going to do now is maybe bring down the exposure. I feel that the image is a bit too bright now, so I just bring down the exposure a little bit. The exposure is just an overall brightness of the image. It's probably the easiest way to think about that. And I'm going to adjust the highlights. So I'm going to make the highlights a little bit darker and the shadows a lot brighter. And now that I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that maybe less contrast. I want to flatten out the image. I don't want too much contrast in this image. And I can also make the blacks a little bit brighter like so that there's no like real deep black shadows, and maybe darken the whites a bit. If you want to see how your image is looking after an adjustment that you applied, you can click on this icon to see the before and the after. Cool. Let me just see if there's any questions in the comments. I see the comments are just scrolling through, and hopefully I'm not missing any questions. By the way, talking about comments, if you're watching from YouTube, I can't see your comments, so make sure that you go into behance.net/live, behance.net/live, sign in with your Adobe ID so that I can see your comments. Cool. Awesome. Anybody, so since we're talking about retro photography and like making this look like a retro photo, anybody still out there shooting with film? I'm curious to know if anybody's still doing film photography. Let me know in the chat. What color lookup will achieve an old film look? I can answer that. You know what? Why don't we answer that question now? I'll press OK. I'm not going to lose any of my adjustments. I just can click on this eye icon to disable this. I can click on the adjustment layer icon, select color lookup, and we have these LUTs that apply different looks to the image. You can just scroll through all of them. I'm simply going tapping on the down arrow key to toggle between all the different LUTs, and you can find one that gives you the look that you're going for. That one looks kind of retro to me. It's like a Kodak by Adobe LUT, and you can just find the one that looks the most retro to you. But in this case, we're just doing something custom using the camera raw filter. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Since we are working with a smart object, I can always come back and make changes. I apply the changes with the camera raw filter, but now I can enable the eye icon again, double click on the camera raw filter label, and it comes back up, and I can continue adjusting any way that I want. Cool. Chad is saying nope, but I have an old back of rolls that I need to eventually get developed, probably 10 years old. Wow, I'm sure you're gonna find a lot of cool photos there. I have a 3mm camera, but getting the film process anymore is a struggle. It definitely is me. I can definitely understand that. I'm old. Ted is saying I'm old enough to have a darkroom in my basement and develop my own black and white pictures. That sounds super, super awesome, Ted. Occasionally I use film, even less so right now. This is from Mercurial. Yeah, it's very difficult to find labs here unless I develop myself. Where are you from, N? Let us know. Maybe you mentioned that earlier and I missed it. Cool. Awesome. So let's continue with this. So I'm just making all these different adjustments. Next, I'm going to move into the texture, clarity, and the haze, and I'm just going to bring the texture down. Usually people use the texture slider to add texture, obviously, but you can drag it to the left to remove texture, just to flatten it out a bit so that there's not so much sharpness, so it doesn't look so new. I can do the same thing for the clarity. Clarity is contrast in the midtones. It does something similar. And we have a lot of saturation in this image, so I'm just going to use the saturation slider to just reduce that saturation. And I'm going to now go into the split toning, and in the shadows I'm just going to add a brownish color like so. And you can fine tune this all day long until you get something that you like. But with this slider, what I'm going to do now is use the balance slider to balance it. So see, this is very little brown and a lot more brown. So in this case, I really want that brown to pop on that image. So I'm going to drag the balance slider to the left. And I'm going to go into the effects tab, and from the grain panel, I'm just going to add a lot of grain. I want this to be like an old grainy photo. Let me zoom in so that you can see. I'll select 200. And if you click on this down pointing arrow, it gives you more options, so you can get grain that is much bigger. So I'm just going to jack up the grain size all the way to the top and maybe even make it more rough. And I can just adjust it accordingly just to make it seem like a really old film photo. Something like this should work. If it doesn't work, you can always come back and edit it. That's the advantage of working with a smart object. And I'll fit the image in view and add a little bit of vignetting like so, and I can press OK, and that's already giving us that retro effect that we're going for. And we're gonna add a few more things to this, but before I do that, let me look at the chat. Awesome. Ted is saying that you can still sense the smell of the chemicals. Cool. Donovan bought a few disposable cameras a couple years ago and still hasn't developed them, so no one really does it anymore. That's true. I don't know where you're at, Ted, but or Donovan, sorry, but I think if you mail it to Walgreens in the US, they'll do it for you. Maybe not anymore. I don't know. Cool. Nice. All right. Oh my God, I'm so late. No, you're not, Christina. You're fine. It's being recorded. You can come back and watch the recording, but we're just getting started. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is apply a few more effects to this photo to make it look older. And one of the things that I want to add is just stains on a photo. So one of the easiest ways to add stains to a photo is by using brushes. Luckily, in Photoshop, we have free brushes that we can download from Webster. So if you select your brush tool, you can click on this down pointing arrow, go into the gear icon, and select Get More Brushes. This will open up a web browser, and why is it doing this? There we go. There we go. It's a little slow. Web browser, and from this website, you can download over 1,000 free brushes from Webster, and you do have to be a Creative Cloud subscriber, and you have to log in with your Adobe ID. But what you can do is scroll down and just download any one of these brush packs. The one that I'm going to talk about today is this one called Spatter. Right here, it has over 40 brushes that allow you to apply spatter to an image. You can click on download and just double click on the ABR file when it downloads, and it will install in Photoshop. Once it installs in Photoshop, what you can do is click on this drop down, and you'll see that set here, spatter brushes. And the one that I'm going to use is this one called Kyle's Spatter Brushes Beautiful Mess. So I'm going to select that brush, and I'm going to create a new layer, and you can select whatever color you want. I'll select white, and watch what happens when I paint. By the way, I'm using the left and right bracket keys on the keyboard to increase or decrease the size of my brush. That's right next to the letter P in North American keyboards. But when you click, you can see that you start adding that splatter. See that? Super, super cool. And you can change the color if you like. Maybe we can add one that's maybe off-white maybe a little brownish, yellowish, like so, and paint over here. And that gives us that effect that you see there. So you can just start styling the photo however you want. So this photo's, you know, somewhat old, so maybe it has a lot of stains on it. And you could always go into the fade menu, go into fade brush tool, and it will fade the last brush stroke. So maybe you like that brush stroke, but it's too intense. So you can bring down the opacity. See that? Like so. And I'll leave the blending mode set to normal. And you can see that there. Super, super cool. So you have total control of how the brush strokes are applied to your photo. And of course, you can spend the entire day here fine-tuning this layer. If you decide to erase something, you can just select the eraser tool in this case, and then just maybe erase it. And then you can use the fade command. So edit, fade, so that you don't erase it entirely. You just sort of fade it out. So that will be a way of doing the same thing I did earlier, but after you've done several other steps, because the fade command is only applied to the last step that you did. So in this case, I wanted to change something using the fade command of something that I had done a few steps ago. I don't know if that made any sense. Let me know in the chat. And I think that looks pretty good. There, Carol is saying that there are coffee cup stain brushes as well there. There certainly are. Yeah, you can pretty much fade anything. And here's a super cool tip too, talking about fade. When you apply a smart object, a smart filter, anything on a smart object, this little icon here on the bottom right, if you double click on that, that's basically the fade command. See that? You can change the fade. You can fade it using the opacity and changing the blending mode. So that's basically a fade command on a smart filter that you applied. So same difference. Super, super cool. Marsha's saying, could you also use the texture image for that effect? You can definitely find a texture online, on Adobe Stock, anywhere that you want, and use it on here. I may already even have one. Let me see. I'm trying to think if I have one, and if I do, what it's called. I'm just gonna type in stain and see what comes up. Nope. I'll type in texture. Yeah, like for example, I have these textures here, and let me think of one that we could use. For example, maybe this texture here. So I could just drag a texture in here and just, you know, make it fit like so. And then change the blending mode in this case to like multiply, and then adjust the opacity. And I did something very similar with a texture. So yes, you can definitely use a texture. In this case, we went with the brush just because we could have a little more fun with it. Cool. All right. So what I'm gonna do now is create a light leak. So like those old film cameras, they were not very good. So when you would take a photo, sometimes light will go into the camera as you were taking a photo. So you would get these light leaks on the edge of the camera. So that's what we're gonna try to replicate here. And one of the ways of replicating a light leak is by creating a new layer, filling with black. Black is my background color. So press Control Backspace on Windows, Command Delete on the Mac. Then you can go into Filter, Render, Lens Flare, and then just create a lens flare that's like right in the center. And I'm gonna use the 105mm prime lens flare, press OK, and then I'll change the blending mode to screen. Control T, Command T to transform, and I'm gonna squish it up. And I'm going to also scale it up. Just make it taller, not necessarily wider, like so. And I just want this to be my light leak. And I'm gonna zoom in and just place it right about here on the edge. And then I can go into the hue and saturation adjustment layer and increase the saturation. Make sure that you have the clipping mask icon selected so that you only affect the layer below. If I bump up the saturation, you should see that result there that looks a lot like a light leak. And what I'm gonna do now is also actually blur it, just because I see a lot of banding going on there that I'm not really liking, and if I blur it, I think it might look better. So Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and just blur it enough that you still have the colors, but none of that weird banding. So now we have our nice light leak, and I'll try to increase the saturation just a tad bit more. And you can place this light leak anywhere you want. You can place it on the other side. You can place it on the top, anywhere that you want. I think in this case, maybe placing it right over here looks best. I think that looks pretty good. Cool. Let me see if there's any questions in the comments. We're talking about coffee. I'm not sure why. Old paper reference, Folgers, not for you. Everybody, oh my God, I haven't done it since I've been in the UK, but I drink Starbucks a lot, not because I think it's the best coffee, but because I know what it's gonna taste like. So usually if I'm traveling, within the US at least, I know that if I go to a Starbucks, I know what I'm gonna get. So I've started drinking a lot of Starbucks because of that. Cool. I haven't used lens flare effects since at least 2010. Yeah, I don't use it too often, but every now and again it comes in handy for things like that. Brad is saying, wow, this is awesome. Thank you so much, Brad. Cool. Awesome. So one thing I wanted to remind you guys, we only have a couple more minutes, is that starting on October 8th, Claudia and I from Print My Soul are going to start a new show. So if you go into iamclaudy.com, and click on resources and scroll down to rework it, you'll see a submission form. Claudia and I are going to be doing Adobe live stream starting on the 8th of October, where we're going to rework your files, whether it's a Photoshop file, an AI file, an InDesign file. We're going to use our expertise and professional knowledge to try to improve the work that you submit to us. So make sure that you submit your design onto this page so that you can have an opportunity to be featured on the first and second episode. The second episode would just be on the 8th. So the 7th and the 8th, we have 2 episodes back to back. So first of all, make sure that you submit your work. And second of all, make sure that you check out the new show that Claudia and I are going to have here on Adobe Live. And also, I mentioned this in the beginning of the stream, make sure that you check out the tutorials that I created for Adobe. They're 3 tutorials on how to use Adobe Illustrator and 3 tutorials on how to use Adobe Premiere with a Photoshop user perspective. So these are designed for Photoshop users who want to step into those applications. So make sure that you check out these tutorials. There's only 6 of them, and they're each about 10 minutes. So make sure that you check them out. And these are from Adobe. And actually, you might have gotten a notification somewhere. I got a couple of messages online saying that they were notified, I believe through the Creative Cloud app, about these tutorials. So you may also get a notification through the Creative Cloud app about these tutorials, but make sure that you check them out. And I'm sure that the link will be placed in the chat. If it's not, I'll post it there now so that you guys could have it. And yeah, thank you so much. It's been an awesome 2 weeks. I hope that you enjoy being here with me. Make sure that you submit your work that you've done with me onto Discord. The link is right up above my head. So make sure that you go into Discord and you submit your work. We have some of the engraving effects here, the hair swaps, the surreal portraits, a bunch of good stuff. So thank you so much for submitting your work. Also remember to submit your work into behance.net. Click on create a project and use the hashtag PSDailyChallenge, PSDailyChallenge, so that you can have an opportunity to be featured in the curated gallery. Also, since you're already on Behance, make sure that you follow me on Behance. If you enjoyed these last 2 weeks, and make sure to give me a follow on Behance, behance.net/JR from PTC. I'm sure there's a link somewhere in here. Let me know in the chat which one was your favorite challenge. I'm curious to know. I'll read through the comments. I'm just wondering, out of all the challenges, which ones you found the most useful or the ones that you enjoy the most. So let me know. And yes, I'm going to turn off my recording today. Cool. Awesome, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching. It's been great, and hopefully I can talk to you guys again soon in another Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge. But I'll be back again with Claudia from Print My Soul on October 7th to do our first Rework It Adobe Live show. All right, so make sure that you stick around for another stream. I believe that Howard is up next, Howard Pinsky. So thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you again very soon. Bye.